last class spoke about which month? Thank you, Sivan. Sivan, which month is it? What number month? 3, number 3, the 3rd month, okay? And what holiday falls out in Sivan? Shavuot. What happened on Shavuot? Yeah, say it with confidence. The giving of the Torah. There you go. Right, the giving of the Torah. What's the difference between Simchas Torah and Shavuot? We just had Simchas Torah. What is Simchas Torah? When we finish, thank you, Shayna. Simchas Torah is every year, every week in shul, they read from the Torah. They read usually one. It's called a parsha. Sometimes it's 2, usually 1. And they start it on Simchas Torah and they finish it on Simchas Torah. So we're celebrating the fact that we actually had a completion of the Torah cycle of reading the entire Torah. Okay, so we left off. I want to finish speaking about Shavuos today. Any questions on what we discussed last class? No one remembers. We're doing good. So we're speaking about how we finished off saying that the astrological sign for Sivan is a person. It's Tumim, twins. It's twins. Why twins? So we gave a few reasons, right? Twins are more than, all right, it's your birthday, right? You're Sivan or on Shavuos? Shavuos. On Shavuos. Your birthday is on Shavuos. Okay, so twins we're more than just friends, we're more than just family, we're more than just brothers, we were literally like born at the same time. Shavuos and Sivan is a month of unity. It's a month of unity with Klal Yisrael, with the Jewish nation, and it's a month of connectedness, right? And it's also, I'll get there in a minute, it's a month of connectedness and unity, and it's number 3, right? Like a triangle, right? A triangle has like two sides that are, this doesn't really look like that, are like seemingly like not connected, have nothing to do with each other, and you add one more line, it's like, oh, now we're all connected, right? That's what does unity mean? What do we think unity means? Let me ask. Togetherness. Give me more. What do we think unity means? Connecting. I like it. Peace. Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Give me more.
Like, because we're together, we're united, we're like connected, we're in peace with each other, we're like...
Yes, and I'm trying to go a bit deeper. What is necessary for peace?
Understanding.
Yes, I love that word, understanding, right? Any other ideas, Madeline? No? So I love the answers. Unity, human beings, as a world, we tend to think as unity as uniformity. And what does it mean to be one? We tend to think oneness is sameness, right? In order for us all to get along, we all have to be like each other. We all have to be the same. We all have to dress the same, right? That is why our 3rd temple, and final temple, is still not here, right? What does it mean, unity? What does it mean? We call it in Hebrew, achdus, right? If you've heard that before, there's many songs. Achdus is our goal. Achdus, achdut, means unity, right? It comes from the word echad. Echad means one, right? One, it doesn't mean we are all the same, right? Oneness doesn't mean sameness. Unity doesn't mean uniformity. It means you can be you and I can be me, and that's okay. And together, we'll work together. You know what I mean? Work together so far? Right? Together, we'll work together. So Shavuos and receiving the Torah, and what did the Torah empower us to do? Torah literally means, what does Torah mean? Do we know what the word Torah means?
Teaching.
Close teaching, yeah. Torah comes from the word hora'ah, which means instructions. Torah comes from the word hora'ah. I don't know why it's capital. Hora'ah, which means, hora'ah means like amora, right? You say, you know the word mora, you're my mora. No? So that's what kids in Israel call their teacher. Mora means a teacher, right? So you say mora edna, mora shifra, right? Mora means a teacher. Comes from the word hora'ah, instructions. The Torah is literally called Torat Chaim, instructions for life. Right? It's amazing. We are so lucky that we have that. Right? We have instructions.
What did you say? Can you just say that again about the horror on life?
Yes, I'm so happy you stopped me. What?
Like, how does that go together?
and life. Why is it called Torah Chaim? Because the Torah is God literally gave us a manual before, instead of just throwing us into a car and saying, now drive the car, he actually gave us a manual on how to live life. So Torah's Chaim, as it's usually referred to, means instructions for life. The Torah is a book more than just, it's a set of rules that you have to live by, which it is that, but it's also guidance instructing us for life. Does that make sense? Yeah. I realized the importance of reading a manual when about, I'm embarrassed to say, probably a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, we got a vacuum cleaner, a new vacuum cleaner. When I was living at home with my parents, which has been many years since then, I don't know, vacuuming just wasn't my thing. I never dealt with a vacuum cleaner before. Anyways, we bought a vacuum cleaner here, and the instructions were in Hebrew. I basically sifted through the instructions. I got the picture, but instructions in Hebrew can be pretty complicated if you're not totally fluent. And then about a few months later, I told my husband, I'm sure there must be a way to, where does all the dirt go? There must be a way to, get the dirt out, right? It's going in there. And there's a way to, lift the top off. So, lifted the top off, but it's just, this clean white bag. So I'm okay, I guess not. And a few months went by, we're vacuuming our carpet. It just doesn't resonate with you. I knew my neighbor had the same vacuum cleaner upstairs. And for some, we asked them, there was miscommunication. I don't know. They said, no, you don't have to change it. I don't know. Anyways, this past week, now it's a year and a half later, I told my husband, I'm telling you, the garbage has to go somewhere. This dust. Anyways, I lifted the whole thing apart. I'm gonna find it because I know it has. There's no such thing. It doesn't just disappear. And then I found right on the inside there's a vacuum bag. Right? You're all of course that's what vacuum cleaners. I didn't know that. I'm so happy to admit I didn't know that. So there was a vacuum bag, and I looked at it, and it was this. You can imagine. No need to go into details. I'm instructions. That's why you look at the instruction manual. You don't have to have 2 years the same vacuum bag, and now it is discussed, and it was just dirty dust went everywhere. Okay, so instructions. That's what Torah means. Instructions. Okay. So we said, why is the Torah given specifically to man, not to animals, or more than animals, not to angels? Why not to angels? We quoted a medrash last class. What was the medrash? Moses going up to get the Torah. Remember? And
the angels were saying, why should you give it to man? And God said to Moses, make your case.
Good. The angel said, why give it to man? They're going to mess it up. Were you three here? You weren't here. Okay. Coincidence? The three? So what did Moses say?
What is?
It doesn't have to be exactly, but what?
Basically, it was you should not kill, or you should not, something like that. And he's basically that it was made for man. The instructions are for man, not for angels or anybody. Right.
He kept saying, so what's written in the Torah? And they said, well, you shall not be jealous. And he said, well, do you have neighbors that you're jealous of their car, right? Don't covet your neighbor's wife. Do you sometimes not get along with your wife and you're tempted by someone else's wife, God forbid, right? And they kept going on and on. And it says, all the angels said, the Torah belongs to men. The Torah belongs to men, right? It's meant for that. Adam means man, comes from the word, why are we called Adam? Because we come from the Adama, we come from the earth, right? But so do animals come from the earth. So why are we called Adam? Why aren't animals called Adam? Bing.
We also have a godliness.
Yes, we have God, right? God blew unto us a soul. But from the ground, animals are called behema, which means ba-ma. Literally translated as what's in it, it is. What you see is what you get with an animal. Human beings having a soul gives us the ability to be either adama, like the ground, like the dirt, our animal instincts, right? Or to be edameh. Adameh, right, means to be similar. We have the ability to be adameh, similar to God. We just read this week's parsha. God said in Bereshit, it's beautiful. We're starting Sefer Bereshit, Genesis, it's amazing. And God said, Nasa Adam b'tzalmenu kitmusenu. Am I going too fast?
Can you just clarify?
Wait, no one answered. Am I going too fast? Hello, no? Okay, yeah.
Adama and Adameh, you said...
Yeah. Adam is the same word as Adama. That's why we are called Adam. Adama means ground. earth. We could also be adameh, which means similar. We have the ability to be similar, to be godlike, to rise up. You hear people sometimes saying, what do you expect? I'm just human, right? Like, I don't know, I was tempted by it, I'm just human. And the answer is, exactly, you're human, right? We have the ability to rise up. You are human. The Torah gives us that ability. And that bechira, that free will, doesn't mean we'll be perfect. We are not meant to be perfect. Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher asa tov v'lo yechta, which means there is no righteous person in this world who has done only good and has not sinned. Not because, listen, everyone makes mistakes, but because messing up and failing is a necessary requirement and component to being successful. We need to mess up. The Torah is giving us that. The Torah is giving us this. Why? So, instructions. Because we are going to mess up. Clear so far?
How do we know that we need to mess up? What do you mean by that? Like in every situation?
No, our goal is not to mess up. I mean, we're not saying, like, I heard Mrs. Gersht say we're meant to mess up, so let me for sure eat this cheeseburger. I'm not saying that, but there's actually a beautiful chazal that teaches the chazal, the rabbis, cannot demand of us something that we cannot take on ourselves. Are you familiar with this idea? There are certain times where a halacha is, rabbis reenact certain halacha, right, depending on the generation, but there are times when they don't give that to the nation because they won't be able to do it, right? Right? We don't make something too stringent, they won't be able to keep.
Like they decide that?
That's a different class, how they decide it, but basically. In short, we can speak about after class, it's a different topic. So it's the same thing. God doesn't ask of us things that we cannot handle. So, however, messing up though is part of the process. How do we know that? Because look at the Torah. It is so funny. We just read Parshas Bereshis. It is so funny. Anyone who is looking for reasons why the Torah is not true, you don't have to look too far. Just look in the Bible. It is full of contradictions and mistakes and messing up, right? Literally in the first chapter, there are numerous, the ground sinned, Adam sinned, right? Adam and Chava sinned. Cain killed his brother Hevel, right? Noah's whole generation is doing immoral things. Like the Torah is like a whole, Joseph's brothers try and kill him, right? Tamar is this woman who dresses up as a harlot to be with her father-in-law. The Reuven messes up with his father. There's like mistake after, and that's all just in Genesis. There's 5 books. That was just like the first off the top of my head. So you see it's like a necessary component. However, the goal isn't to mess up, but it's just saying the reality is that you will. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue on with Shavuos. Shavuos says Chazal, a beautiful idea. Could be we mentioned it here. Passover was the proposal, right? God said, will you be my nation? And we said, yes, right? We followed him out. Shavuos is the wedding day. You have some people who wear white. It's their bride. Shavuos is the wedding day. And Sukkot, right? Those are the 3 Shalosh Regalim, the 3 main holidays, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. So, and Sukkot is the Yichud room. We know what the Yichud room is, right? The Yichud room is that room the bride and groom go to immediately after the actual ceremony, where it's just the 2 of them alone. And Shavuos is and Sukkot is the Yichud room, right? It's us and God in a sukkah. What does it mean? We're discussing Shavuos. What does it mean that Shavuos is the wedding, is the ksuba? God gave us a ktuba. God gave us a wedding document, which was what? The Torah. He gave us the Torah. What did the Jewish nation say? 2 words. When God said, do you want my Torah, what did they say? Naseh v'nishma. We will do and we will listen. What's funny about those words?
They said we will do.
Right, they said we will do before we will listen. That is what a commitment means. On Shavuos, God gave us a ring, right? He gave us a marriage contract. People, it's really funny actually, hang up their ksuba in their homes. Have you seen that before? People hang it on the walls, their marriage contract. Do you know what? You hope to never need the ksuba. A couple always needs to know where it is at all times, but you hope to never need it. It's a divorce contract. It is the obligations to the husband to the wife and the wife to the husband. And what happens if they do not fulfill those commands, if they don't fulfill those obligations? On Shavuot, God gave us a marriage contract. He gave us a ksuba, and we said, Na'aseh v'nishma. I'm going to do, and I'm going to listen. Not nishma v'na'aseh, I'm going to listen and I'll do. And that is the yesod, the foundation of a marriage. In one word, commitment. Commitment. It's a hard word. It's a hard word to swallow. And that's what Shavuot says. We're saying, God, we're committed to you. What does it mean to be committed? Let me ask you, what do you think commitment means? Respect.
Sticking the course even when you don't want to sometimes.
Even when it feels yuck, to kind of stay committed to it, keep doing it. Kind of like Sam. You know Sam in Gesher who did the Yam Liyam? Do you guys know Samantha? Yeah. Samantha in Gesher, she did there's a trail in Israel. It's 80-something kilometers or maybe even more. And she hiked the whole thing and she's like, I was going to give up 50 times. But she was committed to it, right? What do you say? Trust. Trust is a big one. That's what emunah and bitachon is. Even if something doesn't make sense to me right now in my life, God, I trust you, right? To have a relationship, what's one of the biggest hindrances to trust? Short-term thinking, meaning, God did this to me.
Acting fast,
No, more like when God did this to me, now we're in a good place, right? Wow, he found me the man of my dreams. God, I really trust you're there for me. Oh, shoot, my mother just passed away. God, what happened to you? Totally abandoned me, right? That's what hinders trust in God. When it's a roadblock to it. When it's I can't short-term thinking of, it's just in this situation. That's what I'm basing my relationship off of. Rick Lavoie, he's an incredible educator. He has great YouTube videos. He says what he calls, he's speaking about in teaching, but it applies to all relationships in life. You need to have every relationship has an emotional bank account, okay? Which means a trusting relationship, okay? So, for example, I do something for Madeline, and then I just deposited, he'll call them poker chips. I deposited 5 poker chips into the account, right? And then if I hurt her feelings, I just withdrew 10. Now our emotional bank account is in the negative, right? So he says that every relationship has that. He's speaking in regards to a teacher. As a teacher, you have to be aware of the emotional bank account. But it's the same thing with us and Hashem. We have an emotional bank account with Hashem, and when we're depositing those chips into it, when we're depositing things, oh wow, things make sense. God, thank you so much. That gives room. That's almost your savings account. So when, oh shoot, this big bill just came up. How am I going to pay for it? Well, you have your whole emotional bank account with God. That's what emunah and bitachon is. So trust for a committed relationship, right, is necessary. That bank account that you have that's building, not if you're constantly withdrawing, right, then you're going to be in the negative. What else is necessary for commitment? Love? Yeah, it's true. Otherwise, why would you be committed? Right? Why are parents committed to their children, even though there's no reason for it? Commitment means everything that was said. And it means also that this doesn't make sense to me right now. God, I don't necessarily get it, but I'll do it. Okay, so when my husband's very graciously putting away the dishes after Shabbos, and he's putting the wine glasses back onto the shelf. And it's really nice. And then I say, honey, do you mind just moving them a little to the center? And he's like, sure, why? Just because I like it that way. Just humor me. I'm OCD, just a little more to the center. I like it, right? He's doing that not because it makes sense to him, right? He's doing it why? Because I love you, because I care about you. Sure, you can have the wine glasses in the center of the shelf, not on the side. Commitment means not just when it feels good. That's a freebie. When relationships are rainbows and butterflies and the birds are chirping, butterflies are flying and everything's good, that's a freebie. When does the relationship start? When it's not making sense to me. When things, I don't get it, God. this doesn't feel good, or my husband says something, my husband's a tzaddik. In a theoretical world, if my husband said something, right, then why did he say that? Do I all of a sudden get angry and feisty, and now there goes that means it's a totally selfish relationship. There is a story, there are many stories like this, a true story of a couple who got divorced. And a PS, right? Why is commitment so hard, right? Why is marriage so hard? Because commitment is so hard. The divorce rate is that more people than not who get married will end up divorced. One of the provinces in Canada, it's over 60% in the States, one of the provinces in Canada enacted a law that when a couple gets married, they cannot change their last name for 2 years. Why? Because it was causing so many problems to keep changing back and forth because the divorce was so high, okay? Why? There's a lot of reasons, and there are great reasons why people should get divorced, right? But there are many reasons why people shouldn't be getting divorced. Commitment means it doesn't necessarily make sense to me. There's a story of this couple who got divorced, and they had to split everything 50-50. And so the guy sold his $25,000 car for $100 and gave his wife $50. There is another story of this couple who got divorced and they had to split everything 50-50. And the woman had this dog that she really, really loved, and the man demanded half of the dog. And obviously they're not going to cut a dog in half. He spent thousands of dollars on lawyers to defend and get him half of the dog. He lost. But all that time, energy, and effort and money, right, into what? I hate her, right? I hate her. I don't want her to be happy. Commitment is, it doesn't make sense to me, but I'll do it because I love you. And speaking of commitment, there's so many stories. I want to speak about, and this will finish Shavuos with this, but I want to speak about Megillas Ruth, for a few minutes. That is, are we familiar with this Megillah? We read this on Shavuos. It's such a beautiful story. Let's hear the story. You know the story? Let's hear.
So a mother with her Jewish sons, right? And so the sons take wives from, some of them took their wives from the Moab nation, which aren't Jewish. And Ruth was one of them. She was the wife of one of the sons. And then the sons they passed away. And they left the land because there was famine, so they went out of Israel.
They went out of Israel,
and that's
right?
where
And they died because of that. And then Naomi, the mother of the sons, when her sons passed away, she's like, to her daughters, she's like, go back to your nation, to your land. There's no reason for you to stay here with me. And Ruth was one of the ones that said, no, I want, your God to be my God, your nation to be my nation, your people to be my people. And she was committed. And she left with Naomi to land in Israel.
That was great, thanks. That is the story in a nutshell, which is, first let me start with why do we read this on Shavuos? So the reason we read this on Shavuos is Ruth was the great-grandmother of David HaMelech, okay, King David. And she was the great-grandmother of David, and David was born and passed away on Shavuos. Okay, so it's like commemorating that. Ruth is also the numerical value of, you tell me, how much is Reish? 200. How much is above? 6. How much is tough? 400. Equaling? 606, okay. Ruth was the Ruth was a Jewish convert. 606 plus 7 equals 613, thank you, right? What? Why 7? Because before she converted, she had the only law she had to keep were the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, the 7 Noahide laws, which all non-Jews are obligated to keep, okay? So she had the 7 Noahide laws. On Shavuot, she accepted the Torah, right? What did she have? The other 606 mitzvot to take upon herself. There was this woman named Nomi who she had sons. Her 2 sons' names were Machlon and Kilion. Her husband's name, you don't have to get stuck in the names, her husband's name was Avimelech. There was a famine in the land, and they said, oh my gosh, we have money, everyone's going to come to us, let us leave. So Avimelech and Nomi, Machlon, Kilion, and the two Moabite princesses, they were princesses, Rus was the one name, and Orpah. Rus and Orpah is the other name, okay? And they go. And we're speaking about achdus and unity and connection, right? The triangle, the 2 lines, and the third line, 3, right? We're all connected. You don't leave your brothers when they're all starving and they need your help. So slowly the father passed away, and then the Machlon passed away, and then Kilion passed away. Nomi turns in a very emotional scene. She turns to her daughter-in-laws and she says, leave, right? Don't keep coming with me. I'm a widow, I have no money, basically I'm abandoned and I have nothing for you, go on. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law and left, understandable. And Ruth said, no mom, I really want to stay. And Ruth said to her, even if I have more children, right, there's a law called Yibum and Chalitza, if we're familiar with it, which means if a man passes away, not leaving over any children to continue his name, it's a mitzvah of the woman to marry, right, his brothers, so they can continue the family name. She said, even if I find someone, I get married, and I have children, are you really going to wait around for Yibum? Are you really going to wait around just to marry them? Go ahead, go on without me. And she kept telling Rus, go, what are you waiting for? And Rus finally turns to her, and Rus says, like Lisa just said so beautifully, right? It's like such an emotional scene, and she says, wherever you sleep, I sleep. Right? Amecha Ami. Your nation is my nation. What are you doing to me? I'm coming with you. Did I ever tell you guys the story that the convert, I know that the same story happened to her? Did I ever share with you the Muslim convert? No? Okay, I'll tell you a story really quickly because I'm interrupting myself and we don't have so much time. I spent Shabbos with this woman. Her story is actually on h.com. Unbelievable. She grew up in Tunisia. She was Muslim, and her family was a very prominent family in the community. And basically, they weren't religious, but she said like all her friends were. You know how sometimes people carry pictures of rabbis in their wallets? Some people do that, or pictures of their kids. She said she had friends who carried pictures of Osama bin Laden in their wallets. Like she was in Tunisia. And because her family was pretty well-to-do, her father wanted her to go to the land of gold and silver, which is America, and to go and get a university education. God will have it that she ended up in Brooklyn, okay? This Muslim girl in a Brooklyn college. And she started being surrounded, Brooklyn is, other than Israel, right? Like, just filled with Jews. And so she started, like, meeting all these Jews, and she started going to Torah classes. She's like, this stuff is really cool. She's like, I want to convert. And her parents obviously hadn't said no way. And she went to a rabbi and he said, like, I want to convert. And he's like, no, like really no. And then she left, and then she came back again, and she's like, I really want to convert. And again, no, as Jews tend to push converts away in the beginning. And then she went again. The rabbi said, no, and I remember when she was telling me the story, she said, and in mind, she was like 21 years old at the time. And she looked at the rabbi, and she stood up, and she burst out crying, and she said, why are you doing this to me? I want to be a Jew. And she was just crying. And the rabbi looked at her and said, I'll convert you, but just know you will be a 50-year-old spinster. No one's marrying a 21-year-old Muslim girl. Like, no Jew is marrying a Muslim girl. She said, I don't care. I want to be part of the Jewish nation. And she converted. Whole story. Her family said that we're basically like disowning you, but she said, I'm converting anyways. A year later, she gets a phone call from someone saying, hey, are you dating? And she's like, well, I didn't think about it, but they said, well, there's this guy from Mexico. He grew up Christian, and I think you guys could. Anyways, they ended up getting engaged. Under the chuppah, her mother came in for the wedding. Her father, now many, many years later, will maybe sometimes speak to her like in the background of the phone, but like doesn't speak to her. Under the chuppah was this Muslim woman turned Jewish, this Christian guy turned Jewish, her Muslim mother on one side, his Christian Mexican parents on the other side, on a very humble wedding because their parents wouldn't give any money. Her parents tried bribing her, saying, when she got engaged, okay, you can marry this guy, you can do this Jewish thing, just come back to Tunisia first, have a mock wedding here to a Muslim guy here, just so we can save face, basically, because for a Muslim to marry a Jew is, right? And so come back, have a mock wedding here, and then you can go back. And they said, like, no way. And it was a crazy story. So that was exactly the story. When she told me that, I'm like, that's a story of Rus. Rus turned to her mother-in-law and she said, what are you doing? I want to be Jewish. And then they went on and she stayed with her mother-in-law. They came to this town where there was someone named Boaz there. Boaz was the Gadol Hador, the leading Torah sage of the generation. They had Nomi and Rus didn't have any money on them. Rus went down to the field, and Boaz said, BT, my daughter, how can I help you, right? That's what Torah giants are, right? They treat people like human beings. They treat people with respect. The first thing he said is, my daughter, right? How can I help you? Derech Eretz, manners, caring about people. And anyways, Rus and Boaz ended up getting married. They had a child together named Oved. Oved had a son named Yishai, and Yishai is the father of David HaMelech, who is the Mashiach, not the Mashiach, who is the king, basically. Mashiach comes from David HaMelech. I want to spend the last 5 minutes discussing the power of one moment. The language of the Megillah in that scene where Rus is leaving, where Rus is telling Naomi, I don't want to leave you. It says, V'Rus dafka ba. And Rus stuck to her. Dafka comes from the word devek. Devek means tape. Hebrews, all the words are connected, right? Rus stuck to her. The Medrash or Chazal tell us the night that Orpah left Naomi, she slept with 100 men and 1 dog. Her great son or great grandson was Goliath, right? And David HaMelech came from Rus, who stuck to Naomi, is right David HaMelech, and you have the famous right David and Goliath battle. When we're speaking about commitment, we're speaking about receiving the Torah, being able to be mekabel, being able to be committed to what Hashem says, right? Having a bigger, living life with larger principles, larger than just what makes sense and what makes me feel good in this moment. That's the power of what decisions of one moments. And we all have moments in our lives of V'Rus dafka ba. Who here knows what I'm talking about? A pivotal moment. Shall you stay or shall you go? Anyone here know what I'm talking about? Everyone here knows what I'm talking about. Everyone here has had moments like that. Maybe not as dramatic as, let me be part of the Jewish nation. But we all have moments of, shall I stay or shall I go? It could be as simple as, should I go to seminary or should I not? Should I dump this guy? Should I not? I know it's good for me, but I know it's bad for me. Right? And the power of commitment, the power of being able to stay on, even as Madeline said, even when it doesn't feel good, even when I'm hiking this trail and it doesn't feel like such a fun trail, right? That's the power of commitment. That is why we read Megillas Rus on Shavuos. That's who Rus was. And coming from her is David, who Mashiach comes from. The Torah, we said last class, very interestingly, given in the desert. Was given in the desert. You would think we're finally... The whole point of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the exodus from Egypt, the whole point was for what? Was for us to go to Eretz Yisrael and live a life with the Torah. We didn't have the Torah, the actual Torah before then. Okay? So this pivotal moment, right, where we are receiving the Torah, you would think it would be on the Temple Mount that they're fighting about every single day in the news here in Israel, right? You would think it would be where the Kotel is. You would think it would be at least in Eretz Yisrael. Right? We asked last class, when you think of Shavuot, what do you think of? People said cheesecake and staying up all night. Both of those are minhagim, they are customs. Neither of them are halacha. We're not going to say that we spoke last class about the reasons why we have those, right? When you think of sukkahs, you think of a sukkah. That is the halacha of, the main halacha, the main mitzvah of sukkahs is to live in a sukkah. When you think of Passover, you think of matzah, that's or no chametz, the main mitzvahs of Passover. When you think of Shavuot, you think of what? Cheesecake. It's not the mitzvah of the day. Why? And why is it given in a desert? And why is there no specific mitzvah attached to it? So no one can ever say at any point in their life, well, look when the Torah was given. It was given in Israel. I'm not in Israel. Or look at all the mitzvahs of Shavuot. I'm not able to do that. The Torah is available to anyone, wherever they are, at any time. Taking on the Torah doesn't mean this is not what it means, okay? You don't want to have, take on too much, right? It's dangerous, it's bad, it's not healthy. You just take on everything at once. It means small steps where I want to live a life of Torah. I want to be more committed to my relationship with God. It's a choice. So why is it given in the desert? So it's not connected to, it was given in Manhattan. Now it's connected to Manhattan. It's given in Jerusalem. Now it's connected to Jerusalem. It's not connected anywhere. It's in a desert. It's empty. There's nothing. There's no specific mitzvah today. Why? It's not connected to, the Torah is not connected and limited to that specific mitzvah. The Torah is available to every single one of us whenever we so choose to make that commitment. Commitment doesn't mean doing it all. Commitment means I choose this one step. And I'm committed to this step. Or I'm committed to knowing more. And that's Shavuos, in a nutshell. In a very short nutshell. Megillas Rus and receiving the Torah and why it has to do with Teumim, twins, and mankind and not angels. Have a wonderful day, everyone.